Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, the place for men to be men and to talk about masculinity and men's rights and issues. I'm your host, Brian Krall, and today I want to talk about the negative male stereotypes that we men need to fight against. In the recent past, I did a series on the sacred masculine archetypes, which I hope that you saw, and I discussed masculine character archetypes in that video, and so I think it's only fair that I talk about male stereotypes, because sometimes people confuse stereotypes with archetypes, which I say because I myself was once guilty of, then called out for it in a very enlightening moment. When I was watching a movie with a friend and laughing about a male character in the movie who I liked, thought was funny because he was so nerdy, I said that he was a character archetype of the nerd, right? And my friend corrected me saying, no, it's a stereotype. And so that was a huge aha moment for me and made me realize how important it is to distinguish the two, because stereotypes are distinctly different in that they are much more limited and limiting because they are negative. Thus, these are things we should really be aware of and speaking out against, and not allowing ourselves to fall into or be referred to as, or allowing other men to be referred to either. Now, stereotypes can simply refer to behaviors, like when women say that masculinity is toxic, right? This whole phrase of toxic masculinity that I addressed in the last video that I hope you saw, that's a stereotype too. That men are privileged. That's also a stereotype. I'm going to do a video on that later. That men should be unemotional, or that men are generally stoic. You're saying that a real man should be stoic. That's a stereotype. None of these things are true. And I will address a lot of these other behavioral stereotypes in future videos. But what I want to talk about today is the actual character stereotypes that there are, and that, are used to refer to types of men, and which some men are actually actively trying to embody because they think it is what a man is supposed to be. And trying to be like these, or even being thought of as them, is negative and limiting to a man. So that's why I want to create awareness about this, and I'm going to go over the ones that I have noticed in society and what they really mean to us men. So the first few are the Macho Man, the aggressive alpha, the big bully, and for those in certain countercultures or in the ghetto, the thug or the gangster or gangsta. These are all variations of the same thing. They're a man who is either trying to be, an aggressive alpha or a macho man or whatever. Basically, trying to be a very extremely manly man as his culture dictates, a man should be. Or these could be men that are getting vilified by women for being assertive and dominant, right? A man gets called a bully or a machista or, a thug or whatever by a woman, or maybe another synonym, just because they are being assertive and dominant, right? And this is something women will stereotype men as just for showing that dominance, right? So for me, I don't consider myself, toxic, bad intentioned or anything like that, but I've gotten stereotyped as, being too aggressive and alpha, right? Or being a little thuggish at times, or being the bad boy or whatever, even though I may be good-natured, right? Just because I have a dominant personality and I'm very assertive. And then there's men who actually behave in these ways, in ways that are antisocial, in order to empower themselves against adversity. As if a man grows up in the ghetto, or maybe if he grows up in a household with all women, feminist women, he may, basically have to develop a certain type of attitude. Or they may just be a type A personality, okay? This is the thing. So it's a negative stereotype for people who have type A personality or, certain types of attitudes. And then the converse of this would be the nice guy, the simp, or the supplicator. This is a man who tries to buy affection from women with niceness and favors, but doesn't get treated nicely back. This is actually a limiting stereotype. If someone refers to you as a nice guy, or any of these things, says that you're supplicating to women, take it as a wake-up call, all right? The next similar thing, which is like this but worse, would be the white knight. That's a more extreme version of this. It's a guy who takes it upon himself to try to save women from other men in hopes of getting laid, which generally never really happens. So if a guy says that you're white knighting, again, take that as a wake-up call. And then again, similarly to this would be the gentleman. I think of it as the weak gentleman, a man who calls himself a gentleman as an excuse for being too weak to do things such as, taking initiative and getting sexual with women, or being aggressive with an alpha male who's being, a bully. Men will also call themselves pacifists in order to avoid violence because they are weak. So these are all negative stereotypes that I hope men don't fall into, or will avoid falling into. And the next one is the bumbling idiot on the TV sitcoms where you see the husband or the dad who's basically a stupid guy who was incompetent, a source of laughs, and is really only there to make the wife seem smarter and more superior. We need to talk about this. All right, this is a negative stereotype that has gone on for decades and just makes men look bad. All right, I mean, all these stereotypes make men look bad and are things we need to talk about and rectify. But this is something that's been on TV in our modern mythos and needs to be stopped because it is giving men a bad name. All right, it is not realistic and it's not fair. So we need to create awareness about that. The next one would be the bro or the dude, similarly to the idiot on TV. This is a guy who comes off cool but dumb, right? And also there's like a sense of immaturity about this. This is a guy who's not really maturing and growing up. Now moving on, we're going to talk about the beta male stereotype. And it comes in different ways. There's the beta male cuck, the beta male provider, the beta male incel. The beta male anything really. Beta males do have good qualities, but in relation to women, they are pushovers, and it's a negative, limiting thing to be. And it can be in some situations with alpha males, like where an alpha male is being a bully. It can also be a negative, limiting thing as well. So it's a stereotype when someone is talking about it in certain ways, right? If someone's calling you a beta male cuck, for instance, right? You're saying, don't be another beta male provider. This is something for you to look at. Look at why they might be saying that to you. And if the beta male stereotype is not justified, you need to tell them, this is a negative stereotype and beta males do have some good qualities. Now moving on, there's the new slur of the incel. This is an extremely vitriolic one. Basically means a man who can't get laid even though he wants to. And a man gets called this basically anytime he's single these days and a woman wants to shame him. And I've even heard of guys who do well with women or in relationships being called incels. I mean, women are, they look for any type of strong sexual shaming language that they can use that they find effective. And they really latched on to the incel slur. And so anytime a woman wants to make a man feel undesirable sexually and to shame him, they will call him an incel, right? And yet the truth is there's no such thing as a male incel, since any man can buy sex. So that's something to think about. And women generally are attracted to a man's money and status. They are hypergamous. So, a woman will break up with a attractive guy to go with a richer guy, right? So it's not even necessarily calling you ugly when you get called an incel, right? I mean, if anything, it would be saying something about your monetary status. Yet, if you really wanted to, you could get cheap prostitutes, right? So the incel is really not a real thing, and especially also considering that there's so many women who also would qualify as incels. So women using that term is so arbitrary, right? I mean, women have so many more sexual issues than men do. If we wanted to start talking about sexual issues, women won't look good. And that's what you need to do when you hear the word incel, okay? It's a sexist slur that you shouldn't have to put up with as well. And that's something that if you're talking to a feminist, you need to say is that, hey, you don't want men using the word slut or other sexual shaming language towards women. You shouldn't be sexually shaming a man. Besides, there's plenty of female incels, and you probably wouldn't let us say that about them. Additionally, if a man really wants a woman, he can get a woman, very easily by just paying for her. So there's really no such thing as a male incel. Again, it's really just a projection. Now, moving on, the next stereotype is the one that I got called out for using, which is the nerd, the geek, the dork. Something where if you come off as too intelligent or intellectual or academic or scientific, a person, often a woman, will often label you as one of these things. And basically, these days it's used kind of as an endearing term in many instances because they'll act like, oh, nerds are cute, right? But when a woman says a guy's a nerd, what she's basically trying to do is prevent herself from feeling intellectually inferior to him, as well as seeing him as a potential mate, right? Because he's already exhibiting that he's potentially too smart for her, right? So she doesn't want to feel bad about that. And she also doesn't want to feel like, she's being rejected as a potential mate if she acts stupid or intellectually inferior, which, she is how she feels. So she stereotypes the man. So this is something, if you hear it, even if a woman's acting like, oh, it's so cute how nerdy you are, right? Or, oh, you're so geeky and dorky. And she's saying it in a flirty way, unless she considers herself that thing, it's not a compliment, just so you know. It's a stereotype. All right. I don't think you need to really debate this one. You just need to know that, for instance, if a girl who's not a nerdy, geeky, dorky type is saying this to you, you probably don't have much of a chance with her. Okay. She's already put you in a negative box in her head. All right. And it's also showing that she sees you as unrelatable intellectually, you know. The next stereotype is the provider workhorse. This is a man who is basically getting exploited by his employer and or wife for his work capacity and the ability to, spend all of his time working and bringing home the bacon. And this is something that, men can often be wired for. This is something men can easily be put into the position of. We love being productive. We love making money. We love filling up our time with something productive that makes money. And men have been trained to be providers for women. And in corporate culture, men are rewarded with conformity. So a lot of men end up falling into this box of being a workhorse, or just like a corporate grunt, and a provider for women. And so this is something you have to look at if you might have gotten put into, and if anyone is ever jokingly calling you a workhorse, if a woman says you're a good provider, that should be an eye opener. Next is the fuckboy, the player, the pig, the perv, etc. It's a sexual stereotype label that gets put on men when a woman wants to make him feel as though he is too sexual because she cannot use her sexuality to control him when he is so sexual, right? When she sees him as the type of guy who would just fuck her and think nothing of it and move on, he's going to get labeled with one of these negative stereotypes. Or maybe she feels sexually inferior to him. And so this would be like, a woman calling another woman a slut. Women love sexually shaming people who make them feel inferior, or like they, aren't empowered sexually over them. All right. So anytime you hear women using this type of sexual shaming language, you have to know where it's coming from. And it's coming from the female's sexual insecurities and her inferiority complex. And you also, again, should not be tolerating sexual shaming language, and these stereotypes are slurs, what feminists would call sexual harassment if, men were using them for women. Women have put their foot down about the word slut. They've gotten it labeled as sexual harassment. So we need to do the same about our sexual slurs that they use against us when we're being too sexual for them. The next is the jock, the brute, the gym bro, the sports fan. These are types of guys that may be athletic, but their stereotype is often negative because they're often lacking in intellect and meaningful pursuits. So that's something to consider if you think that people have put you into this box before. Something to look at. I'm an athlete. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being into sports. It's just like, have you turned into a couch potato who only watches, sports with your free time, and you've ended up having a diametrically opposed body type to the people you're watching, right? Is sports consuming your mind? You're investing too much in the fantasy football, or maybe it's actually taking you down a dark path of getting into fights with other sports fans. These are things to look at and why many sports fans who are men have gotten this negative stereotype. It's something we can really only change by having more integrity when we are into sports.
Wait a minute. Now a word from our sponsor, me. Do you value the ability to use words to do things such as compose meaningful sentences and speak the truth? Did you know that here in this great country of America, you have the right to free speech? And so do I. And if you don't support people who are exercising that right, then you are probably a fascist dictator. Just like the YouTube algorithm, which stifles the content of patriotic people like me who dare to speak out against the gynocentric, matriarchal, feminist regime that has been aggressively taking over our country. And if YouTube isn't going to promote my content and is going to suppress it instead, I can only rely upon you, my viewers, to show your support. If you don't support free speech, we will stop having it, which is exactly what is already happening with YouTube videos that censor themselves getting promoted and explicit ones like mine getting shadow banned. So, if you like listening to me use my free speech, make sure to press like and share and donate whatever you can with the PayPal link below. Don't make me work for free and get censored like a fucking communist. And with the presidential election coming up, Your donations can literally be used to fund my campaign to get into the White House and abolish the matriarchy once and for all. Literally. Who would you rather have as your president? An old limp dick liberal leftist cuck with noodly arms who's probably never been in a real fight in his life? Or a good old-fashioned, misogynistic, patriarchal man's man like me, with balls big enough to stand up to women, and who you can count on to speak out against them and tell it like it is. Fight the feminazi dictatorship. Spread the message of masculinism. Keep my work alive. And now, back to our regularly scheduled content.
The next stereotype is the house husband. This is something that shouldn't necessarily have anything wrong with it. It's just a man who's done a role reversal with the woman in the traditional gender roles, but in doing so, he's become kind of wife-like. There's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home father, for instance. There's nothing wrong with that, but if a man is being more like a wife and becomes more effeminate, then there is. And it's because he's been emasculated by the woman and her feminazi tendencies. He's probably in what feminists like to call a female-led relationship. And that's not healthy for the man. The house husband is generally a weak, submissive man who's been emasculated. So if you are a man who is a stay-at-home father or spends a lot of time at home with your kids and never gets called a house husband, these are things to look out for, because that, again, it's not a compliment. When women talk about these men amongst themselves, you will hear women slandering these men for being weak and effeminate, right? Not manly and masculine enough. And it's because you're not dominant, you're not, you're submissive to her, right? And this leads me to the next one, which is the henpecked husband. This is a man who is nagged to death by his wife and can't stand up to her because he's too weak. And this is where house husbands go. They turn into the henpecked husband. Henpecking is a term I learned from old movies and TV shows. I'm a film connoisseur, so I watch a lot of old black and white stuff. And it's a term that probably got silenced by feminism, but we need to bring it back because it is a real problem, men getting henpecked by women. And the henpecked husband is a real role like that you have probably met many times. You've probably met these submissive men who basically have their women barking orders at them all the time, and they just, they've turned into yes men because they can't handle the nagging, they can't handle arguing with their wife, right? So they don't stand up for themselves because they've just gotten too weak and worn down. So this is a really negative stereotype to avoid, and if you're a man out there who's married and think you might be in this role, something for you to look at and try to, fight against. Now, the next one is the metrosexual. This is a man who is overly fashion forward, and thus he's basically seen as faggy by others. Even women who say, they're into fashion, they're into nice guys, and, they might like to hang out with gay guys who are fashionable. They may compliment you on your fashion, right? They may compliment you, say you're a nice guy, start hanging out with you. But if they ever refer to you as a metrosexual, that is not a compliment. It's like her calling you a fag, okay? It means that she thinks you're gay and doesn't desire you sexually. If a man calls you a metrosexual, it means he doesn't respect you, okay? Because he thinks you're gay. And it just basically means that you're too focused on fashion and looking nice, all right? I mean, look at me. You know that I'm into fashion, right? But the thing is that there's a line. I spend a certain amount of time on it, and I know exactly when it's too much. Right? There's a serious ceiling upon how much time a man should be investing in his appearance every day. So while it's okay to look nice, it's okay to use accessories and things to make yourself look dapper, like my pocket square, for instance, but I don't fuss around with the thing. I stuff it in there, primp it, fluff it, make it look good, and that's it. All right? I'm not spending minutes folding it in complicated patterns to make it look like a napkin swan coming out or anything like that. All right. So moving on, the next one is the corporate drone. This is a man who has no identity except his job title and lives only to work and thinks only about work. So this is obviously a bad thing. We already talked about the male workhorse and provider, and this is a man whose job role has literally taken over his entire identity and sense of self, right? When you become just a job title, and we all know these people who can't stop talking about their job. These are the ones who need to look at themselves and start thinking to themselves, like, who am I really? If someone ever refers to you as a corporate drone, even if they mean it teasingly as a joke to, call you a good worker, that should be an eye-opener, because the corporate drone is a negative stereotype and it is not a good thing. to have your identity taken over by your job role. So you should be more than a job title. And when I say more, I don't mean you should be higher up the corporate ladder, because this is the next one, the corporate fat cat. This is the man who's been a corporate drone his whole life until achieving a high rank at the company, which he uses to be greedy and unethical. This is even worse than being a corporate drone. And so if you are a company executive or, in a high position in the business world and someone calls you a corporate fat cat, you need to take a good hard look at yourself, because that's a really negative stereotype right there. It's a stereotype basically similar to the next one, which is the white male patriarchal oppressor. This is basically a negative label feminism is given to all white men in order to demonize them. And, anytime you hear a feminist in a debate talking about the patriarchy, white male oppressors and such, you need to stand up for men, because this is really nasty rhetoric. That is, again, it's sexist. It's what is called misandry. All right. So that's something you shouldn't have to even listen to, because, again, feminists are against sexism against women. So they shouldn't be making these sorts of slurs and stereotyping men. Next is the strong, silent, stoic type. This is a man who represses his emotions at the expense of his mental health. And men often talk about this as a positive thing. You may remember from The Sopranos how Tony used to always talk about the Gary Cooper type, the strong, silent type. Whatever happened to Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type. And this is not a positive way to be. And it is actually a negative stereotype that is something that helped contribute greatly to the APA's calling traditional masculinity toxic. And while that's bullshit, as I cover in my last video on toxic masculinity, which I hope you saw, the strong silent type, or the stoic type, is still a negative stereotype that we men need to avoid falling into. And so when you hear men talking about this, you need to point out, like, hey, that's a stereotype. Men aren't inherently this way, or don't need to be this way. And it's also actually unhealthy for you. And it's part of why the APA labeled traditional masculinity toxic. The next is the New Age man. This is one I especially despise. This is an effeminate spiritual man who often is a feminist or worships the sacred feminine. Something that I'm diametrically opposed to, as you know, if you watched my Sacred Masculine Archetypes series. And the New Age man uses spiritual manipulation to try to fuck hairy hippie chicks who can then easily control him with their feminism, but he doesn't care because he's a simp. So the New Age man, to me, is like the opposite of a masculine man, and uses spirituality to justify and validate his feminine ways, which is bullshit, all right? It's not more spiritual to be feminine as a man. The New Age community and its version of spirituality is all bullshit. It's basically narcissism and delusions. And if you get called a New Age man, that's a really negative stereotype that should be a great big eye-opener for you. And you should know that you don't have to be so feminine. You shouldn't be a feminist, because that's, like denying your own gender. You shouldn't use spiritual manipulation to try to fuck hippie chicks. And you shouldn't let yourself be controlled by feminists. What you should do is discover that masculinity is actually sacred, and check out my series on sacred masculinity, which you can find in the playlist section. The next is the cultural icon, or the conformist meme. This is a man who tries to fit into the exact mold of what his culture says an ideal man should be. Something I've seen in many cultures, because I've done 2 world tours. And so there are always these men who will try to fit into the norms so well. And it's not just that they're conformists, it's that they're also trying to be their culture's version of a manly man. They're trying to be very masculine, right? So they turn into, these cultural icons or memes, which works for people who are brainwashed by their cultural programming and social conditioning. But for people of higher consciousness, or people who notice what they're doing, it's not impressive. And, that level of conformity just means that you don't have a real independent, unique identity of your own. So that's not really a great thing to be. You really should try to find yourself instead of just being what your culture programs you to be, down to a T. The next is the creep. This is a man who's socially awkward and makes women feel uncomfortable and gets labeled a creep, which is a really fucked up thing to say, because women are also socially awkward oftentimes, I think more often than men, and are emotionally sensitive and unstable enough to constantly feel uncomfortable with a lot of things, and they can often make men feel uncomfortable too. But the creep label is an exclusively male one. And, a lot of times when a woman is being socially awkward, it's seen as cute, or she can frame it as her being cute. But, women are constantly pointing out the awkwardness of men as a bad thing. Oh, what an awkward silence. And calling men a creep when they make them feel uncomfortable, even though women feel uncomfortable constantly. So it's arbitrary, and it's also just a negative thing for a woman to say. So, if a woman calls you a creep, maybe you weren't being socially intelligent. Maybe you could have used more empathy. Maybe you could have used more social acuity. Hell, maybe you could use some social education and training, something a lot of people in this day and age need because of how the internet is de-socializing us, which is the reason I created the social science division of my company, True Life Relationships. So if that's you, check it out. But you shouldn't need to put up with this type of shaming language. Again, it's not sexual, but it's like social shaming language. And women, they're just so prone to being nervous and uncomfortable and anxious during social interactions, especially with strangers. And I think that, if you're not one of the most attractive men out there, without attractiveness, there's, only so much you could do right socially by women. And, an attractive man can get away with whatever the fuck he wants. He'll never get called a creep, even if he's being completely pervy and sexually pushy. But, whenever you're meeting a new woman, a woman who's a stranger, there's a chance she might feel you're being socially awkward and creepy and trying to make you feel uncomfortable about something you did. Is it worth looking at if you could have been more socially intelligent, and tactful? Yes, sure, right? If you're networking, sure, definitely, right? But otherwise, I think you also need to realize that you shouldn't take this personally because it probably has more to do with her than it does you. The next would be the selfish asshole. This is something women call men when men don't bend over for them and break their back, helping them out, right? And instead just looks out for his own self-interests. That's when a woman will label a man a selfish asshole because they feel that men are supposed to be givers and providers for women. So although there are men who are actually selfish assholes, and so when you get called a selfish asshole or an asshole, it's worth looking at why you've been stereotyped as such, and if you could potentially behave in a less sociopathic manner. But keep in mind that this stereotype is one women use on men who they are trying to get to bend to their will and to do things for them, right? And when the man chooses to look out for his own self-interests instead of the woman's, above his, that's when the woman may say, God, you're such a selfish asshole. And you need to realize that she's just trying to manipulate you and coerce you, and you should not allow her to do it. And you should call her out for being manipulative and using a negative stereotype to do so. Last is the bad boy stereotype. This is a man who either doesn't conform to the ethical standards of his culture and follow all rules and regulations and instead rebels against them, or, as I've talked about before, is highly sexual, and doesn't conform to the sexual shaming of women, and he just is a player. So this is a negative stereotype because it could hurt your social and professional status in some situations. This isn't the worst of them, obviously. This isn't actually even that bad in many cases, but it can be. Again, as you're getting older especially, I've found that my being thought of as a bad boy has hurt my social and professional standing in many situations. So when people talk about you as having a bad boy type of persona, that may have seemed cool if you were a teenager or in your 20s, but as a man grows up, it's something you need to look at, at more as a negative stereotype and why people might be thinking of you as that, and how you could potentially change your reputation a little bit. I'm not saying you should be more of a conformist or less sexual or whatever, but there could be certain mannerisms, the way you carry yourself, the way you dress, etc., that could be calibrated a little in order to seem, perhaps a bit more classy or more professional. So that actually concludes this list of the negative male character stereotypes. If you ever hear these labels being used to stereotype a man or yourself, just keep in mind that they are negative things to say about someone, even if the woman using them doesn't seem to be criticizing or shaming you. It's still a negative stereotype that you should not allow yourself to be pigeonholed into. So it's important to speak out against these, saying, no, I'm not this. That's a negative stereotype. I'm actually, and then share with them some of the more positive aspects of yourself, whatever positive personality traits you have that, are what they should be seeing you for. And if there's a socio-political issue attached to the stereotype, be sure to generate awareness about that. All right. And I want to talk more about the positive traits that masculine men should possess, no matter what culture they're in, positive masculine traits that are seen as universal. Just like I talked about in the Sacred Masculine Archetypes series, which I hope that you will watch. And I'm I'm going to talk more about those soon. However, before I do that and move on from talking about some of the negative male stereotypes that women have put on us, I want to talk about one final one that is big enough to do an entire deep dive into, and that is the gentleman stereotype.
That concludes this video. Thanks for listening. I hope I mansplained that good enough for you. If you like what you heard, please click the like button, and if you feel you gained some value from this video and would like to give some back, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support helps fund me doing this work and fight the good fight for men like you. If you are ready to take the red pill and wake up from the matrix and the matriarchy controlling it and learn everything you need to know about female on male sexism, get your copy of my newly released book called Misandry Exposed, on sale now for a special price that won't last long. So check it out by clicking the link below. And otherwise, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.